Welcome everybody to the Chess Lab. Today is a great day, and even if you don't think it's a great day, well, it's up to you to decide whether it's a great day or not, because in reality, it's not a great day, it's not a bad day, it's just perception, so it's up to you to choose. And I'll help you to choose that today is a good day by showing you this absolute masterpiece by Wesley So. And really, Wesley So, every time that I watch his games, he creates something unique. So let's look at this beautiful game, played in the title Tuesday, and this is a 3-minute game, I think plus 1 or 2 seconds of increment, which is basically nothing. And usually when we analyze games that are 3 minutes long, you know, the value of the analysis decreases, of course, but in this case, it actually increases the value of the whole game. And you may be wondering, how is it possible? Well, let's look until the end to find out. So d4 by Wesley, knight to f6, knight to f3, and here g6. And here Wesley already creates a little bit of confusion by playing knight b2 d2. Usually they play c4, but the point is that after bishop to g7, for example, or even d6, knight to c3, bishop g7, and here e4, well, this is the King's Indian, and I am sure gentlemen playing with the black pieces, Sam Schmakel, is an international master, so is a very strong player. I'm sure that this was his repertoire, or at least something that he knows very well, and so Wesley wanted to confuse his opponent from the get-go, and so he played knight b2 d2. Very interesting move. This move prepares e4 immediately, meanwhile c4 doesn't threaten e4, but this move does, and so here black kinda has to play d5 if he wants to avoid white expanding on the center immediately. The problem behind the move d5 is that now the whole structure will be different, and so black is kinda out of his preparation, and I'm sure that, you know, Sam Schmakel knows this, but it's a little bit more uncommon. b3 by Wesley, bishop to g7, and here bishop to b2, so both players are developing their pieces, and some of you may think that this b3 bishop b2 idea is a little bit inferior because there is this pawn, right? And so you may be thinking, why is Wesley developing the bishop over here, biting on his own pawn? Well, the point is that black, in this type of structure, has a key move, a key plan, which is to play c5 to challenge this very strong central pawn. But anytime that black plays this, now after d takes c5, that usually is bad for white, but in this case is very good, because of this bishop on b2. And so that's why understanding the pawn structure allows Wesley to come up with this idea. You know, Wesley is just Wesley, so what you gotta do? So short castle by black, e3 by Wesley, c5, as expected, and here d takes c5. Now some of you may be wondering, if black knows that after c5 white is gonna take activating the bishop, why is black doing this? Well, black is doing this because otherwise what do? Right? The problem is you kind of want to develop this bishop, which is a little bit of a problem, and you cannot really develop it here because after h3 you cannot go back, and because, you know, if you go back, g4 traps the bishop, so after bishop g4 and h3 you have to take, but then, you know, white can choose to take with the queen or with the knight, and then white has the bishop pair, and if you play c6, which is not c5, that's the other alternative to consolidate the structure, like this knight is a little bit embarrassed, you may have to develop it to d7, but then this bishop once again is even more in trouble, and if you play b6, bishop b7, like, you know, this bishop is not really doing great, so c5 is kind of just a good move, preparing knight to c6 instead of knight b to d7, and is just a good move. So d takes c5, queen a5, pinning this knight and immediately threatening to recover the pawn, and here comes a3, threatening b4, which would attack the queen and defend the pawn forever. Of course, black needs to take this pawn, and now comes c4. And here the idea is that if black takes, you're simply gonna take back with the bishop, developing all of your pieces, these two bishops will be absolutely beautiful, and you're just ready to castle. So that's beautiful stuff. Rook to d8, lining up the rook to the queen, very beautiful, and Wesley does the same with rook to c1, lining up his own rook against his opponent queen. So d takes c4 was played, bishop takes c4, and here Wesley is threatening a couple of things. One is strategical, the other one is tactical. The tactical threat is to play bishop takes f7 with check, and this just wins the queen. And the other, let's call it threat, is not really a threat, is to simply castle, and then white claims to have the better pieces, especially because, again, on the queen side there is a little bit of a problem in the development of the black pieces again. So queen h5 was played, knight to e5 now, and this move basically forces the trade of the queens, and here queen takes d1 check was played. Rook takes d1, and now comes e6. And in this position, guys, comes the move that made me choose this game as a game to show you, and this move is absolutely fantastic. Actually, feel free to stop the video and try to find the best move here for white. Okay, and the move, according to the engine, is the best, is king to e2. I know, it's crazy. Now, everybody, at least me, is thinking about short castle. That's just the most logical. And short castle, don't get me wrong, it's okay. The problem is Wesley realizes something here. These three pieces especially are bad, right? And all of these white pieces are beautifully placed. Someone better than the others, but actually also the rook. All of these pieces are beautifully placed. The two pieces that are kinda not that active are the king and the rook. And usually, in order to activate the rook on h1, you short castle, so suddenly the rook is towards the center. But here Wesley talked to himself and said, I want to activate this rook, that's true, and the king is in the way, but at the same time, by playing castle, this king moves away from the center. And you may say, yes, but now the king is safe. The problem is Wesley has a really deep understanding of the position, and since the queen are no longer on the board, yes, there are many pieces, yes, this is not exactly an endgame, but he understands that playing king to e2 is just very safe, especially because of all of this activity of his own pieces, and so he understands that king to e2 is better placed than the king on g1, and by playing this move, the rooks are still connected. So this is really beautiful, deep understanding of Wesley, and it's just beautiful. So knight to c6 by black was played, and this allows knight takes c6, after which b takes c6 and black pawn structure is now damaged. You may be wondering, was black forced to play knight to c6? I mean, not really, but it was very hard to play. For example, the most logical move, human move, is knight b2 d7. And the problem is that here comes knight d to f3. And you realize something, that suddenly by playing knight f3, this rook is open up, and so this knight is pinned. But since, because of course if you take, this rook falls, but if the knight is pinned, how you are supposed to finish the development, right? Is not so simple. Not to mention knight to g5 may come, attacking these a lot of times, is not easy at all. And so here the computer is suggesting bishop d7 with the idea knight c6 only after that, but again if the knight moves then the bishop is pinned, and you know, it's not really easy, So knight to c6 was played by black. Don't forget that this is a 3-minute game, so we can understand him. Knight takes c6, b takes c6, and now simply knight f3, trying to trade the rooks. Knight d5 was played now. Trading the rooks is not terrible, but it's very dangerous, and it can go bad very quickly. For example, rook takes d1, rook takes d1. Here you cannot develop the bishop on d7, because bishop takes f6, and then the bishop would hang, because the knight is the only defender. So bishop b7 may be your only idea, but after knight to g5 you realize something, there is a lot of pressure on these two pawns, plus this rook cannot challenge the white rook on the d file, and this is a tragedy. For example, h6, and h6 is a bad move, but it's just to show you the ideas. Bishop takes f6 follows, and here the best move is h takes g5, after which bishop takes g5, and white is up a pawn, and white has the more active pieces, and again d8 is super controlled by white, and so white is much better. But if bishop takes f6, here follows the critical move knight takes f7. This is really absolutely fantastic, and after king takes f7, the idea is rook to d7 check. And all of this is possible because of the more active pieces for white, and this of course forks the king and the bishop, and after bishop to e7, the bishop falls, and here white is up a pawn here on the king side and the center. The problem is the structure for black is destroyed, and also here, not to mention, there is equality in terms of material, but inequality in terms of the quality of the structure. That's how it works. So because of these reasons, knight to d5 was played, but here follows bishop takes g7. Wesley finally achieves this long-term goal of removing the main defender of the king, which is the dark square bishop. So king takes g7, and now rook to d3. A beautiful idea by Wesley. The first idea is to double up the rooks, but actually the first idea is tactical. Here black was threatening knight c3, forking the king and the rook. So rook to d3 must be played, and here bishop to b7. If you don't play bishop d7, e4 may come, even though it's not really possible. We will see later why. Bishop to b7, and now rook to c1. When I was analyzing this game, I thought about rook h to d1, and here I was thinking e4, and if the knight moves, I simply win your rook. So, black is almost losing, right? Black has to move this rook. The problem is, e4 is not a real threat. And so here the best move is simply c5, opening up this bishop, very interesting idea, preventing this pawn from ever advancing, so this 2 against 2 inequality in terms of the quality of the structure is not really felt. And if you play e4, knight f4. So sometimes you think about a plan that you think will be winning for you, and your threat that you have in mind is just not really a threat. So that will actually be losing for white. So rook to c1 correctly by Wesley, pointing towards the weakness, and here king to f6, trying to improve the position of the king. And here Wesley exploited this move by playing a beautiful maneuver, knight to d2. And here black needs to play king to e7, centralizing the king and moving away for any possible check. But knight e4 is played anyways. And you may be thinking, why is Wesley rerouting the knight so much? Because after rook a to b8, leaving the square for the bishop, knight to c5. Look at how beautiful this knight is. Really, really amazing. Bishop to a8, avoiding to lose this bishop. And here comes g3. g3 is a very important move, preventing knight f4 check, because Wesley actually really wants to play this e4 move. And here comes a5. a5 is made, try to make it a little bit harder for white to play this b4 move. And here comes e4. And the knight to b6 was played here, challenging this bishop. When I was looking at this game, I thought to myself, why not knight to f6? It looked like a little bit more natural to me, but I mean, Wesley really saw it all, and it's just amazing. First of all, the knight is not threatening e4 because it's defended. So again, I have these things where I see a threat, but it's not really a threat. So, and here after rook c to d1, rook takes d3, rook takes d3, and here the computer is suggesting rook to d8, after which rook takes d8, king takes d8, and if king to d3, it seems like knight to g4, forking the 2 pawns, is good. But actually this is not good in view of f3, knight takes h2, here the best move is to go to e5, and after which, white is okay, but if knight takes h2, king to e3, and this knight is trapped. Cannot go here, cannot go here, and cannot go here. And this is just terrible. And if you try to play moves like f5, trying to somehow to defend the knight, here the computer is saying just e5. And what's the idea behind e5? First of all, the knight is still, trapped. Plus, the next move is knight takes c6 or bishop takes c6. And then this pawn is just a passed pawn, protected passed pawn. White is completely winning. So this is nuts, to be honest, crazy. So knight to b6, f4 was played, and here Wesley, as you can see, is creating the pawn duo. He is not joking around. There are ideas of playing e5, knight to e4, and knight to d6, which is like terrible. So rook takes d3, king takes d3, and now knight to d7. Another move that you may consider is knight takes c4, but after rook takes c4, there is this nasty idea of playing rook a4, rook takes a5, and you cannot really prevent it. Plus this bishop is just dead, so you may think about activating it, but again, rook a4, rook d8 check, just to deliver a check to confuse white a little bit, but king e3, white king is super safe, bishop c8, the bishop must be saved, but after rook takes a5, you have this passed pawn, you are completely winning. But just to show you a very cool variation that ends in checkmate, if black tries to, you know, find counterplay in the center where he has a couple of pawns, rook a7 check, the king may move up, it seems very active because, you know, you're attacking the knight and there is some pressure over here, it seems pretty good, king d4. Look at the difference. This king is on the 4th rank, this king from black perspective is on the 3rd rank, and this is the whole difference in the world. Now the threat is e5 checkmate, and you know, bishop d7 is objectively the best move, after which knight b7 simply wins the rook, so that's just ridiculous humanly speaking. A human may consider f takes e4, but after knight takes e4, guess what? This is checkmate anyways. Look at how beautiful this checkmate is. This is crazy, with these 2 pawns helping white. Crazy stuff, really, but amazing by Wesley. I mean, being able to see all of these things with few time, like, this is ridiculous. So knight to d7 was played by gentleman Sam Schmakel, and now king to d4. Again, this move is so beautiful. You may expect the knight takes, like the move king d4, you don't even think about it. It's just so, you know, not natural to improve the king so much if there are all of these pieces, but again, it's just an illusion. Wesley, playing with the white pieces, understands that this bishop is doing nothing, this rook is doing nothing, and so it's like an endgame where you just have a much better king. Is so good. Like here, no, this is really important. We are seeing these 3 pieces, right? But really, Wesley is only looking at the kings and the pawns. And he realizes that this king is just much better. It's so good. So king to d6 was played. Another move that I considered in the analysis is rook to d8. It seems pretty scary to me, but after knight takes d7, rook takes d7 check, king c5, I mean, it's crazy. And I bet you don't know what's the idea here. The idea here for white is ridiculous. Let me show you. Rook d2 may be an idea to attack this pawn, but you save it with h4. Okay, rook to g2, attacking this pawn on g3. You save it with rook to c3. Rook to a2, attacking this pawn also, you save it with a4. And now what can black do? Well, rook to d2, because of course you want to prevent white to take this file. That would be too bad, right? But rook to d3 anyways. And here what do? Rook to e3, to e2 to attack this pawn on e4, king to b6. And you may say, oh, now I see the idea, very smart Wesley. The idea is to simply win this pawn, after which this pawn is just passed. And that's what I thought, but that's not the idea, actually. The idea is after rook takes e4, king a7, and the bishop is trapped. The bishop is trapped. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is so good. That king, this game is a masterpiece of king activity, really amazing. So king to d6 was played, e5, asking the king, you know, to wonder about his life choices, king back to e7, and now knight takes d7. Again, you may think that these 2 knights, you know, one is more active than the other, but again, Wesley is not looking at the pieces. He is looking at the king activity. Look at the difference. It's not even close. Wesley is completely winning. This is a masterpiece of the endgame, middle game, endgame, king activity, call it as you want, is a masterpiece. King to c7, rook to d1, taking the file, and here bishop to b7, trying to reactivate these pieces a little bit, but it's just too late. A move that I consider is a4, trying to, you know, shake a little bit white position. Of course, if you take this pawn, your pawns loses in value a lot, so b4, and this is just too good. Rook to d8 may be considered challenging, but of course you take. And look at this king. This is so good, it's ridiculous. So king to e8 may be considered, because of course if you move the king here, you know, I just enter and I take all of your pawns and thank you very much, I promote, right? So king to e8, but here follows a beautiful move bishop d3. It seems an innocuous move, but the idea is simply bishop c2. And my question to you guys is, how do you prevent bishop takes a4? And then how do you prevent bishop takes d6? You can't. It's just, I mean, king to d8, bishop c2, bishop b7, but it doesn't matter what black does. White takes here, king to e8, bishop takes, king takes, and now you understand. Like, this is... And again, I want to insist on that, 3 minutes for this game. I mean, I am without words. I'm talking a lot, but I am without words. So bishop to b7 instead, and here rook to d6, activating the pieces to the maximum potential. Again, anytime that you play rook to d8, the trades favors white because he's able to infiltrate to d6, and here h6, trying to create something over there, but there's nothing. g4, rook to e8, here black is just going back and forth, h4, rook to e7, bishop back to d3, rook back to e8, and now bishop to e4, and here he goes again. This bishop coming back and then rerouting is just deadly. The c6 pawn will fall, and after that it's all over. Here black tried a final explosive attempt, g5, but after f takes g5 and h takes g5, Wesley played h5, and on move 38 gentleman Sam Schmakel resigned the game. Can I say something? Here Wesley played absolutely beautiful chess from start to finish, a positional masterpiece in a blitz game. I don't know how he does it, but he does it, and I'm very happy that he does it. Now, just to show you how this game may end and why this is completely lost for black, first of all, this is a passed pawn that you cannot stop. White is threatening h6, h7, which will be defended by the bishop, and that will be just too dangerous. So rook to h8, but now bishop takes c6. White gives away this bishop, and the idea is to play b4. And here you are threatening b5, and then you have a passed pawn, so a takes b4, but now after a takes b4 you understand the problem. You have a passed pawn here and a passed pawn here, and here there's never is... Here there never is counterplay, that's what I try to say. So rook to b8 may be considered, but now b5 anyways, and here the rook may go back and forth, but you know, rook c7 check, the king goes back to e8, trying to defend this pawn, and here really b7, threatening rook to c8 check, and that will be completely winning. So king to d8, defending c8, but now king to d6. Again, look at the difference in the kings. Is just amazing, and this was a strategy all along. f6 may be tried, you know, crazy sacrifice of the pawn, but now h6. The idea behind the f6 is not so terrible. You know, if you take here, this pawn pushes, and if you take this pawn, you know, you lose the rook, you may even lose the game. If you take here, again, you lose the rook, you may even lose the game, and so h6. And here h7, h8 is just unpreventable. Let's say king to e8, but now h7. And you know, h8 mate, you cannot stop it unless you play rook to d8, and after king takes e6 and for example king f8, trying to I don't even know what, h8 equals queen, and this is game over. And so on move 38 after h5 correctly, the black player resigned the game. Again, I want to stress this, Wesley So played a fantastic masterpiece, strategical masterpiece, with a game of only 3 minutes on the clock. Absolutely beautiful. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your chess.